Hey, welcome back to Happy Little No Trees. I hope you had a wonderful breakfast. I had cereal today. It's just kind of one of those days. But today, in terms of what we're talking about, we're going to be talking about a little effect tool that I made that I put up on my website. There's a link in the description, but some people asked, can you talk about it in a little bit more detail and kind of walk through its use case? I gotta turn off notifications. So we're gonna dive right in and talk about what this tool does, what I designed it to do, and how I think it should be used. So just covering a couple of those points, so stick around, and then at the end, we'll have some chit chat time. I don't know. Leave your comments, let me know what you think. So this tool, we're in the color page right now. We're gonna hop over to the edit page, because the tool is an effect and you put it on your clip. So I have actually the Superman trailer that dropped a little bit ago that I kind of broke up. This tool is part of just in terms of thinking through how to break down and take apart a contrast curve. So if we scrub through, we have a bunch of clips. I recommend you using this on one that it feels like there's an even distribution of color throughout the entirety of the image. So we're going to just take from our thing, contrast curve viewer, and drop it on. And instantly what it's doing here, when it's put on this image, our effects panel for the clip comes up and it's got all these settings. But there's 10 patches here. And those 10 patches are calculating the highest, it's sampling at 10% luminosity, jumps from 0% to 100%, and calculating the number of pixels in this image in that range, and then smoothing, and then picking an average or a highest point of that range as the color that is being picked. And so one of the things you can do is then you can take this and go, well, that's the range from darkest colors to brightest colors. And the first tool would be then to look at it and go, and it also gives you a linear contrast curve, so 0 to 1 in a straight line. We can start by just smoothing this out, and that smooth is just going to blend a lot of those features out. Now what we're wanting to look at is on our scopes, on our scopes, the waveform tool, when it's set to all joined together, we can see on there. One of the other things is this overlay height, so we can just bring this up and cover up our image, and that cleans up our scopes a notch. I have to hop over to the color page for it to do this. But yeah, you can bring over, there we go. I gotta figure that out. This automatic show up. So this is right now, our waveform is showing our smooth patches, and it's showing the curve for that, and that's the wavy one, and then it has our linear curve as well next to it. And so we kind of just smoothed it out. One of the things in it that we can do is just make a slight adjustment to this X scale and take the highest point from out to 0. And that generally is when you turn, if you were to turn the overlay down and look at the image again, that curve is how it's calculating its path from 0 to the brightest part of the image. So picking, when you're using the tool, don't use it on things that seem like I was playing around with it. Like this, obviously with everything that's going on, probably not the best rendition of averages to figure out what the contrast curve is. This image here with the lights, it's a little close up. It's not, I wouldn't say the best representation. This one seemed pretty good. There's a bright spot, and you can kind of see it when we just turn this off. Oops, that don't. If you turn that off, you can see it's just kind of general. And if you were to scrub through, it covers a wide swath. You want it to be using a lot. Like this one was pretty good, but when we take that down and take the overlay off, you can see on this shot that generally it was a pretty good shot. Pretty much there's a hot spot up in the top, pretty even distribution of colors. You can see on the waveform that everything looks nice. And so making these adjustments, you can also then clean it up a little bit and make it go grayscale. So just turning this from the color curve to 0 just makes it calculate things based on a blanked out, a grayscale image, and you can make the image grayscale as well. Shouldn't change how the curve functions, and then you can turn the linear ramp off 0 or 1 as well if you don't want the linear ramp and you just want the tracking one. So you can see the image in color, and we can also see that we're calculating it on a grayscale and things like that. So what I recommend doing now that we are kind of at this point is, this is like if we're wanting to say, well, what is the contrast curve for this image? I would bring that all the way to the top, and now looking at our curves on our scopes, just bringing up our scopes over here, you can see there's a general, there's an elevated black point. We know that because most of the images have a bit of a blue in the low end. And then it kind of comes in and it kind of comes up steep, and then it kind of just tapers off and drags across the top. And that is something that is similar to a lot of the images, like that same thing when we get to these scenes here. It's that same kind of elevated black point, kind of picks up fast and then drags over the top once it gets about 50% of the way there. So pretty steep. So like this one, I think when I was scrubbing through and testing like this image, if we go back to the edit page, you can see if we take the overlay down to 0, you can see this image, pretty even distribution, and that was probably the smoothest curve. So you're kind of trying to pick, hey, let's not get one that has a ton of effects or weird stuff going on. You kind of just want a good natural image. And there is a very, like, if you nail those and pick out those in a variety of shots, but yeah, it's just taking a percentage of that, and it allows you to then just bring that overlay back up to full height. And just 2 is like full height, yeah. And we can see there's that generalized curve that we have going on. And what I would do right now is we can go straight to the color page, or you can export a still. Sometimes, because this is being dynamic and working, even on my machine, it's a little rough. But what I've done is it's quite easy on the color page. Like if you wanted to now map that curve, what you get to do is just come down here, bring up your windows, and we're just going to put on a rectangle. Or it's easier if let's turn off rectangle, do square. Let's bring up my scopes, all my stuff going on here, and what we're just going to do is spin that out to full aspect, turn softness down. I like circle because it really does softness only on 2 axes, and you don't have to think about it. You'll see down here on my scopes that because I put that square there, it's drawing some extra lines. But that's just so you can see it on how my monitor does it. So I'm going to turn that off actually. So just right click, or 3 dots, show window outline. We're going to turn that off. And we're going to just bring the size down just a notch. So right now, if we go down to our custom curves, we could go here. We're only affecting the image right in the center. You can see if we were to just crank our gain up, it's only affecting that swatch right there. And what we want to do is pretty much undo. What we want to do is take that square that we had, and we want to lower it down so that it is covering up part of our linear gradient down at the bottom. Let's just bring that up again, linear gradient. window outline, you can see that on. So I just brought it down to there, and you can see if we crank that up again, that's the only place we're affecting this image is on our linear gradient. So now that we have that, we can actually put another node out into the world. We can pipe the mask into it, and that's fine. This just makes it a little bit easier in the next step, where what we can do here, we can do now pretty much anything, and it's only going to affect, because we put the matte in, it's only going to affect that range as we work on this node 2. And there's different ways we can go about this. One of the ways in which you can do it is pretty much just go in and you're working, this is your linear ramp, matches your linear ramp, and you can see on the scopes that when you bring it up and just put a control point, you're pretty much just working the scopes and just writing that line to redraw that curve. So we can just bring this down a notch, and just roll off those highlights. Kind of is, that little uptick is kind of just a glitch in the mechanism for how this is being calculated. There, not too shabby. So now we have just drawn our custom curve, and you can see here on the Scopy guy, we've just drawn our custom curve. If we turn that off, with our custom curve tool, we've just drawn that same contrast curve that we have from the image. Normally there's a different way of like going into it and kind of trying to undo it and piece it together, but this is just a quick visual way where you can work on the linear graph to match the 1D curve of the image from a linear ramp. I have another video, it'll probably be at the end, that links to how to figure out what the colors are and how to get the color rotations. That's going in and working each one individually, because the image has its own thing. It has a very blue, elevated blue, so like you'd have to go in and work the blues a little bit. You can actually, by tweaking these individually in this node, you can start to see how that curve is coming in to match that slight slightly. So now we're splitting our RGB values out just a little bit. And will this be perfect? It won't exactly be perfect, but it's getting us into a place that allows us to see and allows us to say that we can go apply this curve to our baseline image that we want to work with and get a good feel for how stealing this look and applying it elsewhere gets very close. You can see as we start to work curves, starting to get that same kind of color separation. And so you see that because there isn't as much blue, and it's kind of getting that little split tony look. The green's kind of in its own place. But generally, we're getting pretty close here. I'd be really happy with taking this now and just copying this node only onto a target image, and then from there tweaking it to get it to where I want, where I'm maintaining some of these same tonal aspects. And then from there it's saving a still and comparing it and doing the thing to kind of see how to build the look with your own tools. And that's one of the cool flexible things about this is because we're piping it into a window, we don't necessarily have to do things in reverse, do things upside down. We can actually turn that off. We can go down here and say, like, I like to use contour for my contrast curve. We can put that in right here and put the mask back into it. And now when we work our contrast curve with contour, you can see it's drawing that same contrast curve down there in our scopes. So we can build a modeled look off of that curve. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do it this way, is because you can't really There's a way to turn, if you don't know this, and this might be getting down into the weeds, when you're looking at your custom curves, when you turn, say, this off to 0, 0 is inverted, 100% is regular, 50 is neutral. And you can see that in the other video that kind of walks through stealing grades. But you can't do that with your normal look dev tools. And that's why this overlaid graphic allows you to kind of work with your contrast curve tool that if you're using in your look dev contour to kind of draw that same curve that matches it. You can see all I did was use contour to draw that curve. I didn't use custom curves, I didn't use anything else, and kind of shaped a curve. Might make some tweaks to the toe length to kind of blend it in. We can even see on the screen if we wanted. Oh, no, because it's only there. Toe strength. Kind of just dial some of these things in. Yeah, look at that. Get it right on the line. Boom. Using my look dev tools, like so. We can also go in and using split, not showing the split curve, but we can also start to introduce some of that shadow hue in. Kind of get that same kind of blend. We can pick a highlight hue. And one of the things we'll have to do is there is so much divergence at the floor and at the ceiling that subtractive high looks like it's going the other way. And start to kind of draw the basis of our contrast curve, or our curve, and start to get some of that separation and that tonality going into it that kind of matches what's going on in the rest of the image. So yeah, that's kind of once you've applied. So if we want to break it down, let's go back through the steps. What we did was we'll just go pick a different clip, just start somewhere out in space. We want to find a good clip that kind of is representative. This one's actually not too bad. Like we can see where the peak is and the shape. We could just try it there. So we'll take the contrast curve viewer. We're going to drop it right on. That's step one. We're going to smooth that grade out so that it's kind of smooth. We're going to see that, yeah, there's a lot going on at the high end, and we might just move the scale out a bit to see how that shapes up so it's actually drawing better, because it kind of cranks out and spends a lot of time. There's a lot of white, and so we're pretty much just clipping some of that white out in terms of seeing how that curve looks and functions. And what you can note is when you're looking at the curve in the waveform is it starting to come down as you push it out too far. And now that it's, you know, kind of in a happy place and we can kind of see the curve, we can pop this up and cover up our image. And you can see it's actually quite similar to the one we just drew. And that's when we're going to go over to the color page, and we can bring up the scopes and see here is that curve, very similar to the one we just drew on that other image once we've matched the max peak and drew that overlay. The first thing we'll do is put in a window on this first node. I like to use the round window just because it's easier to tweak. You can make it into a square and a different shape. Shrink it down. And we're just going to put it just over our gray ram. And then we're going to take this and we're just going to go add another serial. We're going to pipe in our node there, and you can use custom, whatever tool you want to use to draw your custom shaped curve. I'm going to use contour again here, and we're just going to go and start shaping, and you can see it directly happening on the waveform down there. As you shape contour, you're going to get that nice shape. And we're going to bring up the black point to match it. Kind of know that it isn't, in this version 3 of it, it still has a little bit of a kick. We're going to bring down the white point a little. and then adjust the toe length, and we're just going to smooth it out. Like so. Kind of find where it's at. Like so. And now we have some of that same contrast curve, which honestly, if we go back to here, where did we do that? We did it on was it this image? We worked on one of these images. This one, no, this one, no. Here we go. So we take this contrast curve, copy it, and then we were looking at Dragon Boy over here. Add a node, corrector, paste that in there. You can see where we're at. Add a node, layer mixer, just kind of working it, building that out real fast. You can see here, our contrast curve that we drew on that first image is actually really similar. Almost no change. Our settings are slightly different. 1526, 1483, a black point of 0.037, 0.049. I mean, there's very similar between, when you look at the settings over here, and we're flipping between the two. The white point is a little bit lower in the first one than the second one, but it was also brighter. So you can take this now that you've taken several, maybe done one or two shots from the same movie or the same shots, and kind of go, this might be the overall contrast curve for the entirety of the trailer. And that is the contrast curve that then I would apply at the start of my look dev session to start building a look that feels like I'm in the Superman trailer. Anyways, I hope you like this video. I know it's a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth. You can watch some of the other videos I've done on stealing the grade where I invert custom curves. I feel like this kind of does it a little bit quicker, a little bit easier in terms of redrawing the curve. You can do it where you take a grayscale ramp and apply a LUT to it, and then do that as well, and you can pretty much steal, yeah, and then you put the effect in an adjustment layer. I won't get into all that, but yeah, I know I'm charging money for this effect, but yeah, it took me a while to build it. It's mostly for my purposes and my needs, and yeah, it's supportive to keep making things if you go get it off the website. But yeah, and then yeah, you get free updates and all that. So anyways, there should be another video floating around here. I had a lot of fun with you today. I hope you had fun with me too. Well, yeah, sort of like that. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Ta-ta for now.